All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction here with my guy Graham Coffee from dogcentral.com. Man, a big one this week in Tuscaloosa. Graham, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Down here in Athens, just, getting ready. It feels like every hour there's a little more ramp up and a little more energy, and it is a big one on Saturday night. Lots of implications for Georgia and Alabama both.
Yeah, game of the year type stuff. I think about this one. I think about Oregon, Ohio State. Like there's some big ones, but this one feels about as big as it gets. Let's talk about that game. But first, I do want to ask you, like coming off the Clemson game, mood had to be like super sky high, super through the roof. And then maybe coming off the Kentucky game and then into a bye week, which kind of feels like a lull, even though it's 2 weeks of build up for again the game of the year. Where's the mood at right now? Like, how much did it drop it all after Kentucky and that being a close win, or was it kind of like, man, just get out of there with a win and we feel fine? Or like, where do you think the mood is right now amongst the team, amongst the fan base, just kind of everywhere?
Yeah, I think for the fan base, there is like that Clemson win looks better every week that goes by, really. I think coming into that game, there wasn't a ton of like respect for Clemson or a lot of people who felt like they could win that game. I think there was a lot of people that felt like they could make it a 7 to 10 point game, but I don't think not there wasn't many people that were like, oh, I'm worried about Georgia getting upset this week. Now, the way that game started for Georgia with the halftime score, being Georgia having 6 points, like that has created anxiety around the offense. And then they went to Kentucky and they got shut out in the first half. They had their lowest total yards in the first half since the 2009 LSU game, which was when Joe Cox was the quarterback here. And I think there is a lot of angst internally amongst the fan base around this offense and around Mike Bobo, truthfully. If this was a Todd Monken offense still, just because he was kind of an outsider and had that NFL pedigree, I think there'd be a little more just like trust and believe. But there are a lot of people who still kind of judge Mike Bobo by his first tenure here under Mark Richt. And I think that is creating an extra layer of anxiety going into this game at Alabama for sure. It seems like internally with the team, you have a little bit more just cut and dry, right? Talking to people close to the program, they felt like their offensive line kind of maybe came into that Kentucky game a little overconfident, not quite ready for an SEC road game, the first road game of the season. And that showed early. I mean, first drive of the game, Kentucky gets pressure with 3, and Carson Beck never looked comfortable. They got the run game going enough to go on and win that game, but they never really got it going enough to where it started like opening up giant swaths of space in the passing game. And you really saw Carson Beck's clock get sped up to a level where things were starting to come open downfield, but he was already kind of onto his checkdowns. So I think it's an interesting time. The vibe yesterday, seeing players for media availability was lots of questions about how big of a deal this game is, and how good Alabama has been, and all of that, and like none of them said anything controversial, but there is a little air, I think, of just kind of like they seem a little pissed off. I mean, they've won 42 straight regular games now, right? And they're kind of being treated like an underdog. And in that respect, I really like this spot for Kirby Smart and his team.
Yeah, talking about last year's game, and I tried to read into this too much, just like this outside of like what's actually going to happen with this year's team, because I do think every team is a new team and you've got new groups, but happening so late in the year last year and this game happening so early now, and both quarterbacks coming back. Obviously, DeBoer brought in a lot of new guys, and so that's not like a complete just like same roster that it was last year, but there's a lot of carryover for both teams. Does the revenge factor play in some? Like, I don't know that you need extra motivation when you play on the road in Bryant Denny, but it almost feels like this game probably means a little bit more to Georgia than Alabama. I don't know, as I'm reading that as an outsider, but thoughts on that?
Maybe, yeah. I think there's two scenarios here, right? There definitely is a revenge factor, and anybody that tells you there's not, I think, is being a little disingenuous. Even with the kids who were true freshmen now at Georgia, 85% of them were early enrolled by the time that loss happened. So like they still kind of were around and saw the disappointment of it. I mean, you've heard Smile Mondin yesterday, Georgia's linebacker, and he was like, yeah, like that loss fueled our offseason in some ways. It wasn't the thing, we still take things 1 week at a time and all of that, but it's been in the back of the mind. I mean, that game cost Georgia a chance not at just a national title, but at like a really significant piece of history and the chance to win 3 straight. So yes, there's certainly a revenge factor there. I think for Kirby Smart, he's I think 1-5 now against Alabama. I could be wrong about that, but he's got the 1 win and everything else has been a loss. And there was a error there where it was like, well, Kirby Smart has a Nick Saban problem, which, let's be honest, man, having a Nick Saban problem is endlessly forgivable because everyone in college football had a Nick Saban problem. You don't want to turn your Nick Saban problem into an Alabama problem. And I think that's kind of what's at stake here. And I think for Alabama, right, like I know they watched Georgia win the 2 straight national titles, but Georgia only beat them once in that span. And so I think that there was a large segment of that fan base that kind of was able to sleep at night with the idea of like, well, when we get Georgia, we tend to do pretty well. And so this could be kind of the moment where they become mortal, right? Like they become, just like everybody else. And so, yeah, I think this is a really important game on those levels, just kind of psychologically for both fan bases. I also think this is a really important game when it comes down to recruiting because Jaylen Moore came in. They've gotten a lot of NIL support that maybe wasn't there when Saban was there because they didn't really need it to be there because of Nick's history and his development pedigree. Now you've got all these like 5 stars that are interested in Bama and there's a new vibe. But this would be a tremendous proof of concept win for DeBoer's staff, and it would be something that Georgia would have to answer to on their recruiting trail and vice versa. So, yeah, man, this is a game that I know we're in the 12-team era and that, like, it doesn't matter in the sense of both these teams can go on and make the playoff. Both these teams can go on and win an SEC title if either loses on Saturday night. But it does feel like it has a lot of like narrative implications that are going to have real world effects on both these teams going forward.
Yeah. It all kind of starts with the quarterback. And Vandergriff and Milroe are very different, so I don't want to put them on the same plane, but, mobile quarterback there with Kentucky, another mobile quarterback, which is certainly not necessarily easy for anyone to defend ever. Thoughts on, defending a mobile quarterback, how they can try and limit Milroe, who, when he's had time, obviously has really nice weapons and their offense has looked good at times during the year. Thoughts on how Georgia slows him down, stops him, limits him, whatever they're able, whatever words you want to use there, against him on Saturday night.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the more like unforgivable, schematic decisions of the Kirby Smart tenure was this decision to go out and run a double spy on Jaylen Moore in the SEC championship last year. He is a player who we have seen time and time again. If you get pressure on him, that you can throw him off balance a little bit. And that is an offense that has very much been kind of a boom or bust type of system for the last year plus running. Like they either create big plays or they don't, but that is not an offense that's going to come and drive the ball down the field on you 8 to 12 yards at a time. That's just not really how they function. And so I think for Georgia in this game, it's all about the defensive line. It's all about, can they get pressure with 4? If they can do that, then I think they'll be set up for a lot of success on Saturday. And I think that they can kind of handle, if you look across the board, I think Georgia's got a very good secondary, and Alabama, they've got Ryan Williams, who is a stud type of player, but he is still young. And then their other receivers, I think, are good, but maybe not great. And so for Georgia, I think if you can stay out of the situations that you got into last year in Atlanta, where you had Bama's receivers running around in your back end for 5, 6, 7 seconds because Milroe was just sitting back there and you had these spies just kind of watching him, then I really like their chances to limit Alabama in a pretty significant way defensively.
Is there a matchup, whether it's coaching, whether if it's a specific position group against a position group, if it's a player on player, is there a matchup that concerns you the most in this game?
I mean, I think it's hard not to see how Kentucky ran the football on Georgia last week and wonder, like Alabama, they struggled at times against USF and all of that, but it's like that was a different offensive line, and they've got Caden Proctor back, so that seems like the question to me is like, can Justice Haynes and Jam Miller create missed tackles? Because Georgia, like, they will get into position, but we saw them miss tackles at a pretty uncharacteristic clip against Kentucky last time out. And like, if Alabama is able to go out and run the ball for 150 on Georgia, then it's going to make it a lot harder to pin your ears back and go after Milroe, and B, I think it's going to keep Georgia off balance. So that's the big one right now. I think in my mind is Georgia's defensive line. I think has actually done a pretty good job in run defense, but they've been so thin there due to injuries that those guys just got kind of worn down in the second half of the Kentucky game. So Georgia needs to get Jordan Hall, Michael Williams, and Warren Brinson back on their defensive line, and I think they'll get at least two of those guys back for this game. But B, I think Georgia's linebackers need to help their defensive line a little more than they did last time out. So I would probably say linebackers versus running backs, right? Like if Georgia's linebackers are able to meet those guys at the hole and help the defensive line when maybe an edge doesn't get set perfectly and kind of arrive there at the end of the line, like, and be erasers a little bit, then I think that will be kind of, a padlock sort of thing to watch for UGA. Because if Bama can't run the ball in this game, it's really hard to see them keeping Georgia's pass rushers off balance.
Yeah. What about on the other side of the ball? Is there a place where offensively you think Georgia can kind of take advantage of a weakness from Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, it will not show up in the stat sheet if you go back and look at Alabama's first 3 games, but you go and watch the tape from any of their games really to this point, and you will see wide receivers running around wide open in the back end of that defense. And so I think for Georgia, like, the receiver play has been all right. They've got Dominic Lovett, who stepped up in a major way against Kentucky and kind of, put some things on his back on some key downs. But they've got they've got a collection of a bunch of other guys who have been kind of role players and have done nice things and have had big games here and there to this point in their career, but like have never really had to be relied upon. And now they do. And so if Georgia's receivers can beat man coverage on Saturday night, then like Georgia has the potential to go out and hang 40. I know that sounds like wild and all of that, but the style of defense that Alabama plays, I mean, they've been in man coverage, I think 106 snaps in their last 2 weeks. Like they will let you beat them man to man. And so it's on Georgia's receivers to go out and beat Alabama man to man. Last year in the SEC championship, with Brock Bowers, injured, Ladd McConkey injured, Ra Thomas injured, the other guys weren't able to do that. And so is this where, Georgia starts sending Dom Lovett on some more vertical routes and kind of not having him so attached to the line of scrimmage? Maybe. Is this where Trevor Etienne and those running backs get more involved in the passing game? Maybe. Is this where, a guy like Dylan Bell kind of puts it all together and makes some contested catches in key situations? Like, that's the thing to watch. You've got Arian Smith out there who's a speedster. He was very, very. I mean, he was Georgia's leading receiver in both of their first two games. Very quiet last week at Kentucky. This sort of feels like the payoff, right? Like you kind of fed this guy, you got him confident, you showed that he's not just a deep ball threat, so that you can run a double move down the road and pump fake a DB and get this guy open. Now it's time to go do it, right?
Yeah. It's early in the week. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Not sure exactly when it'll come out, but early in the week. I don't know if you've done a prediction yet, or do you have a lean, or just how do you kind of see it going down that this early in the week, this far out?
I haven't done a prediction yet, and I guess I'm leaning a little bit towards Georgia just because I like where they are psychologically so much coming off that loss, but at the same time, or not that loss, but that win that felt like a loss at Kentucky. But at the same time, I do look at this, and if the Georgia team that showed up at Kentucky shows up in Tuscaloosa, like they're going to get beat. I mean, their offensive line looked porous at times. There were things that were very off rhythm. So I'm leaning Georgia, but that is really all about that is all incumbent upon kind of like what I hear from sources over the next couple of days about how certain things are looking in practice, and sort of what the feeling around certain players is, because I do think they have to be able to go out there and win against man coverage, and I'm very curious exactly what the personnel is going to look like and how much some of these transfers are going to be incorporated into this game plan.
For more coverage, for an eventual prediction, eventual where you break it all down, where can folks find you and follow you for all Georgia content?
Yeah, you can follow me Dog Central YouTube channel. My Twitter is at Graham Coffee DC, and dogcentral.com. In-depth UGA coverage. If you're a Georgia fan and you're not already subscribed, you're missing out. We've got practice reports, intel, and deep dive analysis. So come hang with us, and yeah, man, that's it.
Awesome. We'll link it all down in the description. You guys can go check it out. Graham, I appreciate you a ton for taking a few minutes and chatting with us. Have fun on Saturday, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks, buddy. Always good seeing you, TJ.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.